Something we've been talking about for the last few weeks is how to argue well, particularly as a married couple, how to have disagreements without it destroying the relationship. Well, here's another suggestion. How about we don't argue? How about some of the things that we end up in arguments about, we didn't really need to pick that particular fight? Joining us on the program, Executive Director of FamilyLife New Zealand, Wynand Jacobs. Kia ora. Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. How's it going?
Doing very well indeed. All about choosing your battles, because yes, I know arguments and disagreements will happen. We've certainly covered that in previous weeks. But some of the arguments, some of the fights we get into, probably didn't need to happen. Is that fair enough?
That is totally fair enough. And look, I'm going to eat my own dog food here this morning, because that's probably the main cause of relationship tension that I experience in my home.
Yeah.
Is wanting to figure it all out, wanting to solve all the problems and fix all the issues and the differences. And the surprising reality actually is that I think it's 69% of all marital conflicts are perpetual.
Yeah.
Meaning they won't go away. You're trying to solve something that is by design created to be part of the two of you growing in oneness.
Exactly. And sometimes it comes down to the choice. I'm not sure if this is good relationship advice or even biblical, but you can be happy or you can be right. Pick one. Pick the one that's most important to you, because sometimes even if we have a particular opinion on something, it's not worth the aggravation. It's not worth getting angry with somebody that you love over something. You can just say, you know what? That doesn't need to be a die on the hill thing. I can just let that one slide.
Exactly. Another way of saying what you said now is being correct does not mean you connect.
Yes, and that rhymes better than my one. Thank you.
I always try to remind myself connection over correction.
Yeah, wow.
And the thing is, we often fight not because we're misguided or we're wrong.
Yeah.
We fight, we stand our ground because we're right.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult thing. You know, quite often you are right. And your spouse may be wrong. They may also be right. But let's go with the scenario that they're wrong and you're right. I mean, even then, well, there's actually a different way, and being correct and winning that fight isn't necessarily the way to grow a healthy marriage.
Exactly. I mean, you don't need to necessarily win. You don't need to litigate every single aspect of it.
Yep.
That a little bit of grace as well as truth goes a long way, right?
Right. Now, I want to actually share some research from two relationship researchers with you this morning on this topic. You know, and this is something I'm learning myself and deeply saying, okay, I want to make it better. It's not because we have it right all the time. We want to grow. So this is research from Dr. John Gottman in his book, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. So it says, don't try to resolve all your issues. Many long-standing marital arguments cannot be solved. Disagreements may be rooted in fundamental differences or lifestyle, personalities, or values. Fighting over these differences only succeed in harming your marriage.
Wow.
What couples need to do is seek to understand the underlying differences that cause the conflict and learn how to live with it by honoring and respecting each other's point of view. Oneness does not mean agreement or unity, but living in harmony. And it just takes me right back to the scripture that says, as far as is possible with you, live in harmony with all believers.
Yeah. That includes the one you married.
That includes the one you married. And I think there's something humbling in that reality, is that the battle is for unity and grace and forgiveness and acceptance and love. It's not for agreement.
Yeah.
And I think there's something of the nature of God that gets formed in us if we learn how to live with these things and accept one another, not because we agree, but because we can receive our spouse as a gift in the midst of our disagreement.
Yeah, one flesh doesn't always mean one mind. Not always. No.
Yes. Yep.
And I mean, I suppose in that process, recognizing, because I think that this might be particularly a guy thing. I don't want to put like a gender-based generalization in here, but I think for guys in particular, we have this tendency of wanting to fix people, of wanting to fix things, of wanting to correct people, of wanting to if we see something wrong or our spouse may be doing something wrong, it's our job to tell them what they're doing wrong and to fix them. But actually, that's never in the job description. It's certainly not in the wedding vows. Maybe that's something that God should be doing and not us, right?
Yeah. So and it speaks to a trust thing as well.
Yeah.
If we try and fix our significant others, we're actually saying, God, I don't trust that you've got this.
Wow.
I don't trust you with them. I need to do the fixing.
Yeah.
And after one of those quarrels recently, I reluctantly sat down and said, okay, I need to surrender. God, how do I do this? Because he's constantly calling us to a deeper level of surrender. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to, but I just felt I had to.
Yes.
And I sat down. I was going to just read my Bible. This was the next morning.
Yeah.
I was still upset about the previous night, and I will speak a bit about that in a moment. Mm-hmm. But I woke up the next morning, and this is what I read. James 4. What is the cause of your conflicts and quarrels with each other? Doesn't the battle begin inside you as you fight to have your own way and fulfill your own desires?
Wow.
And then it goes on to say, ask God for what you want.
Yeah.
But we fight in relationship to get what we want. Mm-hmm. But if we can just surrender and say, hey, God, this is what I want. I want my spouse to be so-and-so or do this and that.
Yeah.
Let's trust him with that and let him work on us. That's our job. We can surrender. We can give ourselves to him. And in that way, we actually reflect the love of God. Now, let's talk a bit about, before we wrap up, let's talk a bit about going to bed angry. We love to quote that scripture.
Isn't that a biblical thing that you shouldn't go to bed angry?
Right. That's Ephesians. It says, be angry and yet do not sin.
Okay.
Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Now, apparently, that was quoting Psalm 4, which says something like this. Don't sin by letting anger gain control over you. Think about it overnight and remain silent.
Oh.
Now, that's
quite different.
That puts a different angle on it.
Yeah.
Now, Shanti Feldhahn is another relationship researcher that in her book, The Surprising Secrets of Highly Happy Marriages, has number 3 as a secret, going to bed mad and working it out in the morning.
Wow. That seems unbiblical.
It seems unbiblical, but here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
If we're exhausted, if it's late at night and we're trying to solve this thing that we're probably not actually even going to solve,
yes,
we're fighting a losing battle. Two tired people fighting a losing battle and causing more harm to the relationship than they're doing good. The best thing you can actually do is remain silent and meditate. Let your heart, and that's what the Psalm scripture is saying.
Yeah.
Meditate in your heart. Reflect inwardly on what's going on in your heart. So I'm upset. I'm triggered. I'm wanting to fight this thing. Remain silent. Reflect on your heart overnight. In the morning, if that thing didn't go away, it's probably a thing, and you can maybe have another go at solving it amicably. But here's the thing, right? You don't have to fight it out before you go to bed. Just make sure, hey, we're okay. We're connected.
Yep.
We're going to get through this.
Staying up and fighting might just the end result of that might be that one person ends up on the couch. So you're not going to bed angry because you're on the couch, right?
Because you're not going to bed at all.
But I'm not sure that's what either of those scriptures mean in that regard. But hey, some wonderful wisdom and advice about, I suppose, choosing our battles and trusting God to make the changes both within our own selves but also within our relationships. Of course, plenty more wisdom and wonderful sage advice available at the Family Life website, familylife.nz. Wynand, thank you for the work that you and the team at Family Life do. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.